My GPS told me to take a right turn that did not exist at 9:14 on a Thursday night, on a stretch of two-lane highway about 40 miles south of Albuquerque, on a drive I had taken 30 or 40 times before in my life. I had been driving home from a conference for the previous 5 hours. I had been alone in the car. I had been listening to a podcast about old shipwrecks. I had been about 11 minutes from the turnoff to my own small town, in the high desert south of the city. The road had been empty for the previous 20 miles. The road was the same road it had been every other time I had driven it. There were no road construction signs. There were no detour signs. There was no reason on earth for my GPS to be telling me anything other than to continue straight for another 9 miles. The voice from my dashboard, the small, calm female voice I had been hearing for 2 years in this car, said, "Police checkpoint ahead. Take the next right in 1/4 mile to avoid significant delay." I knew, even as I heard the sentence, that the sentence was wrong. My GPS app had never used the words police checkpoint in my life. My GPS app, as far as I knew, did not have a police checkpoint announcement in its vocabulary. My GPS app announced accidents, road closures, speed traps, and the occasional construction zone. It did not, in any version of the software I had been using, announce checkpoints. I looked at the screen on my dashboard. The map was showing the road I was on, the long, straight line of highway, the small green dot of my car. There was a yellow caution icon ahead of me, about a 1/4 mile out, which the map had not been showing 30 seconds earlier. Below the caution icon was a small label. The label said in white letters, "Checkpoint." I slowed the car. I was the only car on the road in either direction. The road ahead of me was straight and empty and lit only by my headlights. There was no checkpoint. There were no flashing lights. There was nothing. The voice said again, "Take the next right in 500 feet to avoid significant delay." The screen flickered. The screen went black for half a second. The screen came back on. The map was different. The map now showed a small road branching off to the right, 200 feet ahead, where there had been no road 2 seconds before. The map showed the road as a thin white line curving away into nothing. The map showed a small blue arrow on the road with the label "Recommended Route." I knew the highway. I had driven the highway, as I said, 30 or 40 times. There was no road branching off to the right at that point. The land on the right side of the highway was open scrub for at least the next 11 miles. There were no driveways. There were no service roads. There was no road. Hit subscribe. Drop your city in the comments. Stay all the way to the end of this video. There is a thing I learned in the next 45 minutes about a kind of crime that almost nobody has language for yet, and about the small thing I did because of a story my father told me when I was 19. And the small thing is the only reason I am here to tell you any of this. Listen the whole way through. I did not take the right turn. I did not slow down further. I did the opposite. I pressed slightly harder on the gas. I brought the car back up to the speed limit. I kept driving straight. I watched the screen. The screen flickered again. The voice said in a slightly different tone, the same calm tone but pitched slightly more insistent, "You have missed the recommended turn. Continuing on current route will result in police contact. Take the next available U-turn in 800 feet." The map now showed, behind me, a small red icon with the label "Police Vehicle." The red icon had not been on the map 10 seconds earlier. The red icon was showing on the road behind me, about a half mile back. I looked in my rearview mirror. There were no headlights behind me. The road behind me, like the road in front of me, was completely empty. I kept driving. The voice spoke again. It said, "Police vehicle approaching from rear. Take the next available U-turn. Distance to police vehicle, 300 feet. I looked in the rearview mirror. There were still no headlights. Then, 2 seconds later, I heard a siren. The siren came from somewhere behind me. The The siren was the sound of a police siren. The siren was very close. I did not see a police car. I looked. I looked in the rearview mirror. I looked in both side mirrors. There were no lights anywhere on the road behind me. There was nothing. The siren was coming through the speakers of my car. The siren was coming through my GPS app. I want to tell you about the story my father told me when I was 19, because the story is the entire reason I figured out, in the next 4 seconds, what was happening. My father had been a long-haul trucker for 31 years. He had retired the year I had started college. When I had been 19, the summer after my freshman year, I had been driving alone from our house in New Mexico to a summer job in Colorado, and my father had sat me down the night before I had left, and he had told me a thing he had wanted me to know. He had told me that there was a small, persistent kind of crime in this country that happened to women who drove alone on long stretches of empty highway. The crime was that somebody, somewhere, who had decided to do harm, would find a way to convince a woman driving alone that she needed to pull off the road into a place where help was not going to come. The methods were different. In my father's era, in the 70s and 80s, the method had usually been a man flashing his headlights at her from behind, or pulling alongside her and pointing at her tire, or driving in front of her with hazard lights on. The point of the method was always the same. The point was to get her to stop somewhere she should not stop. My father had told me that the rule, when something on the road was telling me to stop or to turn or to pull over, in a place where I could not see other people or other cars, was to keep driving until I reached a place where I could see other people. He had told me that if it was a real police officer, the police officer would understand. He had told me that if it was not a real police officer, I would have just saved my own life. He had told me that the cost of being wrong, in the case where it was a real officer, was a small, awkward conversation about why I had not pulled over sooner, and that the cost was nothing compared to the alternative. He had told me this in our kitchen, the night before I had driven to Colorado, 22 years before the night I was driving home from the conference. He had told me twice more in the years after, the second time when I had bought my first car at 23, and the third time when I had moved out to my own apartment at 26. I had not, in 22 years, ever needed to use the rule. I had not, in 22 years, been in a situation where anything had told me to stop on a road where there were no other people. The rule had been in the back of my head, the small, reliable kind of knowledge that a daughter carries from a father, without my ever having tested it. I tested it that Thursday night, at 9:15, on the highway south of Albuquerque, when a siren came through the speakers of my car from a police vehicle that did not exist. I did not pull over. I kept driving. I reached for my phone, which had been in the small cup holder by my elbow. I picked it up. I pressed the side button and held it for the emergency call function. The phone screen brightened, the way it does when you trigger an emergency call. The phone screen offered me the option to call emergency services. I tapped it. The phone, instead of dialing, did something I had never seen it do. The phone screen flickered. The phone screen showed a black screen for half a second. The phone screen came back on, and on the screen was the same map that was on the dashboard, with the same yellow caution icon, with the same red police icon, with the same small flashing blue arrow pointing me to a right turn that did not exist. The siren got louder through the car speakers. I understood in that second what was happening. Somebody had figured out how to take over my GPS, my car's audio, and my phone, all at the same time, through a vulnerability I did not understand, and that I did not, in that moment, need to understand. Somebody was using a real working set of digital tools to convince a woman driving alone on a dark highway that she needed to either pull off onto a road that did not exist or stop the car for a police officer who did not exist. The someone, whoever it was, had been able to do this from somewhere I could not see, in a way I could not block, through systems I had been trusting for years to tell me the truth. The someone was, in my best guess, somewhere ahead of me on the highway. The someone was banking on me either taking the false right turn into open scrub, where the road would simply end, and where the someone could approach my stopped car under any pretext he chose, or pulling over for the false siren, where the someone could approach my car under the pretext of being a police officer. The someone had not, as far as I could tell, expected me to keep driving. I did the next thing my father had told me to do. I had not, in 22 years, used this second piece either. I rolled down my window. I leaned my hand out the window. I started honking my horn. I did not honk it in short bursts. I held it down. I held the horn down continuously. I kept driving. I held the horn down for the next 4 minutes. The road was empty. There was nobody to hear the horn. The horn was not for somebody to hear. The horn was for 2 other reasons. The horn was for me to do something physical and continuous that anchored me in the actual physical world, and not in the digital world that was being manipulated around me. The horn was also, the second reason, for the person on the other end of the digital manipulation to hear, through any audio he might have been monitoring of my car, that his target was not behaving the way he had expected. The siren in the speakers of my car kept going. The voice on the GPS said, "Pull over immediately. Failure to pull over will result in enforcement action." I kept driving. I kept honking. The voice said again, "Pull over immediately." I kept driving. After about 3 minutes, the voice stopped. The siren stopped. The screen on my dashboard flickered. The screen came back on, showing the regular map, with the regular road, with no caution icons, with no police icons, with no recommended turns to non-existent roads. The voice, when it spoke again, was the calm female voice I had been hearing for 2 years. It said, "Continue on this route for 9 miles." I kept honking. I kept driving. About a minute after that, I saw, finally, in the distance ahead of me, the small headlights of an oncoming vehicle. The vehicle was the first vehicle I had seen on the road in 20 minutes. The vehicle was coming toward me. I stopped honking. I started flashing my own headlights at the oncoming vehicle. I flashed them on and off, 3 quick flashes, the way you signal to another driver that something is wrong. The oncoming vehicle slowed. The oncoming vehicle was, as it got closer, a New Mexico State Police cruiser. The cruiser stopped on its side of the road. I stopped on my side. There were no other cars on the road in either direction. I rolled down my window. I held my hands where the officer could see them. The officer got out of his cruiser. He walked across the road slowly, with one hand near his belt, the way officers do when they have been flagged down on a dark highway and do not yet know what they are walking into. He stopped about 10 feet from my window. He said, in a level voice, "Ma'am, why were you flashing your lights at me?" I said, "Officer, I am going to tell you a story that is going to sound strange. I need you to hear all of it before you decide what you think about it. My name is Solen Vargo. I am 38 years old. I am driving home from a conference. About 15 minutes ago, my GPS started telling me to take a right turn that does not exist. Then it told me to make a U-turn. Then a police siren started coming through the speakers of my car. Then a small red police icon appeared on my screen behind me. There has not been another car on this road for the last 20 minutes other than yours. I did not pull over. I kept driving, and I held my horn down for 4 minutes. About a minute ago, the siren stopped, and the screen went back to normal. I was driving to find a place where I could see another person before I stopped. You are the first person I have seen. I am asking you to call this in to your dispatch, because I think somebody was trying to make me pull off the road onto a piece of empty scrub, and I think it was a real attempt. And I think other women on this stretch of road may have already been targeted, or may be about to be. The officer stood very still for a second. Then he said, "Ma'am, stay in your car. Keep your hands where I can see them. I am going to step back to my cruiser and call dispatch. I am going to be right there. Do not move." He went back to his cruiser. He sat in the driver's seat. He was on his radio for about 6 minutes. I sat in my car. I watched my dashboard. The screen showed the normal map. The voice said nothing. My phone, which I had set on the passenger seat, showed nothing unusual. The world had gone back to looking normal. The officer came back to my window. His face had changed. The face he had on now was the face of a man who had just been told something on his radio that he was, in some private way, glad he had been told. He said, "Ms. Vargo, we are going to escort you home tonight. I have a second unit coming from the south. They are about 11 minutes out. When they arrive, both vehicles are going to escort you, one ahead and one behind, until you reach your driveway. Once you are home, I am going to need you to give a full statement. We are going to need to take possession of your phone temporarily for forensic examination. We will replace it with a department loaner until yours is returned. Ms. Vargo, I want to tell you something, and I want you to hear it from me before you hear it from anybody else. You are the third woman to call in something like this on this stretch of highway in the last 6 weeks. The first two pulled over. Both of them are alive. Both of them were robbed, in different ways. One of them was assaulted. We have been working the case with the FBI's cyber division for the last 4 weeks. We have not, until tonight, had a witness who managed to recognize what was happening in time to not pull over. The reason I am telling you this on the side of the road is that you are going to be a very important person in the next several weeks of this investigation, and you deserve to know that. And you deserve to know that the small decision you made in the last 15 minutes is the decision that is going to let us, by the best estimate of the agents I have been working with, catch the people who are doing this. I am sorry it has been you tonight. I am also, in a way I do not have a good word for, grateful it was you. Most people, Ms. Vargo, do what their GPS tells them. You did not. I would like to know why. But I would like to know later. Right now, let us get you home. I sat in my car. I did not cry. The not crying was a thing my body was doing because the cold focus I had been holding for the previous 20 minutes had not yet let go. The second unit arrived 11 minutes later. The 2 cruisers escorted me home, one ahead of my car and one behind, with their light bars off. We drove 29 miles. We did not encounter another vehicle for the first 11 miles of the drive. We did not encounter another vehicle that mattered for the rest of it. I pulled into my driveway at 10:53. The 2 officers parked their cruisers in front of my house. They walked me to my door. The one I had met first, whose name I now knew was Officer Cyrus Halverson, stood on my porch while the second officer, a woman named Officer Wendy Antonson, came inside with me. She walked through every room in my small house. She checked every closet. She checked the doors to the backyard. She checked the small detached shed at the back of the lot. She came back to the front door. She told me the house was clear. Officer Halverson took my statement at my kitchen table over the next 2 hours. He recorded it. He took my phone in a small evidence bag. He left me with a department loaner phone and the direct numbers for himself, for Officer Antonson, and for the FBI cyber agent who would be in touch with me within 24 hours. He told me to lock the door behind them when they left. He told me he was going to be in touch the next morning. He told me to try to sleep. I locked the door behind them. I did not, that night, try to sleep. I sat on my couch with the lights on. I called my father. He picked up on the second ring. It was after midnight. He had been asleep. I told him what had happened. I told him what he had told me when I was 19 had saved my life. I told him the second thing, about the horn, had also saved my life. I told him I loved him. He was quiet for a long time. He said, "Solen, your mother told me when you were 19 that I was scaring you for no reason. She told me you were never going to need any of that. She told me I was an old trucker who was projecting onto his daughter. I told her I would rather scare you for no reason than lose you to something you had not been warned about." I have thought about that conversation a lot in the 22 years since. I have thought about it more than I would like to admit. I have always hoped you would never have to use any of it. I am very glad you did. I am very glad you remembered. I am very proud of you. I am also, right now, going to cry for a few minutes. And I am going to do it without your mother knowing, because she is asleep, and I do not want to wake her. Good night, sweetheart. Drive over here tomorrow. Bring nothing. Just come. Your mother and I want to see your face. I want to skip the rest, because the rest is an active federal investigation, and there is only so much I am allowed to tell you in a video, and there is more I am still being asked to keep private. I will tell you what I am allowed. The investigation, over the 4 months after that Thursday night, identified a small organized group operating across 3 southwestern states that had been combining a particular kind of cell tower spoofing with a particular kind of malicious software installed on aftermarket vehicle infotainment systems and on certain widely used GPS apps. The group had been targeting women driving alone on rural highways at night. The group had been profiling targets in advance somehow, by methods that the FBI is still piecing together, although the agents have told me they think it has involved a combination of social media scraping and possibly information bought from a leaked customer database from a company none of us would have guessed. The group had successfully attacked, by the FBI's most recent estimate at the time I am recording this, 11 women in the previous 9 months. 9 of the women had pulled over. 2 of the women, including me, had not. The other woman who did not pull over was a woman named Inez Cortazar. She was a 46-year-old emergency room physician driving home from a shift in Tucson 3 weeks before my incident. She had also kept driving. She had also figured out in real time that the situation was wrong. She had, by her own later telling, kept driving because she had read, 2 years earlier, an article about social engineering attacks on rideshare drivers, and the article had stayed with her enough that when her own GPS started telling her something that did not match the road in front of her, she had immediately distrusted the GPS. Inez and I have spoken on the phone 3 times since the investigation began. We are not friends, exactly. We are something else. We are 2 women who happened to read or be told a thing that turned out to matter, who happened to remember it at the right moment, who happened to keep driving. The group's leader was arrested in February of this year. 3 associates were arrested with him. There are, by the agent's most recent update, 2 or 3 more people they are still trying to find. The investigation is ongoing. The case will go to trial. I will, eventually, testify. I will be okay. I have changed almost nothing about my life since that Thursday night. I still drive the same route. I still go to the conference every year. I still listen to podcasts on long drives. I have, in a few small ways, changed how I think about the small, reliable technology that I had been trusting without thinking. I no longer assume my GPS is the truth. I no longer assume my phone in its emergency state is the truth. I no longer assume, when I am driving alone on a dark road, that the absence of other cars means the road is safe. I assume instead that I am the witness on my own road, and that the rule my father gave me at 19 is still the rule, and that the rule is the rule for a reason. I want to leave you with one specific thing. We have built, in the last 15 years, a small, ordinary daily relationship with the small, ordinary daily technologies that tell us what to do. The GPS that tells us to turn. The phone that tells us where to go. The map app that tells us where the traffic is. The smart speaker in the kitchen that tells us the weather. These tools are mostly fine. These tools mostly work, These tools have made a million small decisions in our lives smaller and faster than they used to be. We have, in exchange for the smaller and faster, given up a small piece of our own attention to the road. The small piece of attention we have given up is not, most of the time, a piece we need. Most of the time, the GPS is right. Most of the time, the road is exactly where the screen says it is. Most of the time, the small, ordinary daily technologies are the small, ordinary daily technologies. Once in a great while, the technologies are wrong. Once in a great while, the wrong is not a glitch. Once in a great while, the wrong is a person, somewhere, who has figured out how to make the technology tell you to do a thing that the technology has not, before that moment, ever told anybody to do. The way you tell the difference is by the small, ongoing practice of paying attention to the road itself. The road is the truth. The road is the thing that exists whether or not the screen is showing it correctly. The road, on a dark night, with no other cars, is the only thing you have. The road has been there longer than the GPS has been there. The road will be there after the GPS is gone. I am asking you to do one small thing this week. I am asking you, the next time you drive on a road you know well, to put the GPS away for the entire drive. Use your own memory. Use the road signs. Use the small, reliable mental map you have been building of your own life. Most people, in my experience, have stopped using the small, reliable mental maps. Most people have outsourced them to the screens. The screens are usually right, but the small, reliable mental map in your own head is yours. The map is what you have when the screen lies. The map is what you have when the road is empty and the voice is wrong, and the siren is in the speakers and the police car is not behind you. Build the map. Use the map. Keep the map. My father is 68. He still drives, but only during the day, and only on roads he has known for 30 years. He has not had a GPS in his truck since he retired. He told me once, the summer after I had bought my first car, that the only map he trusted was the one in his head, and that the one in his head had been built by 20,000 hours of driving and could not be hacked by anybody. He was right. I am building mine. I have been building it, in the small, careful ways, since the Thursday night I drove home from a conference with a siren in my speakers that was not real, and a police vehicle behind me that did not exist, and a turn on my dashboard map that led to nothing. The map in my head was built, partly, by my father, 22 years ago, in a kitchen in New Mexico, with a story he told me twice more in the years that followed, that I did not know I would need, that I needed exactly once. Once is enough. The story he gave me is in my head now. It is also, by way of this video, in your head. It is going to be in the heads of whoever you tell next. Tell somebody. Tell your daughter. Tell your son. Tell your niece. Tell the young woman at your office who has just bought her first car. Tell the friend who is about to start a long road trip alone. Tell them the rule. The rule is, when something on the road tells you to stop or turn or pull over, in a place where you cannot see other people, keep driving until you can see other people. Tell them why. Tell them about the road. Tell them about the map. Then trust them to carry it the way you have been carrying it. That is how the rule stays alive. The rule stays alive because daughters tell sons, and sons tell nieces, and nieces tell friends. The rule has been kept alive, in this country, by long chains of small conversations in kitchens, the night before somebody drives somewhere alone. The chains are quiet. The chains are working. The chains are the reason most of us are alive. My father is in his kitchen right now. It is a Saturday morning. He is making coffee. My mother is in the garden. I am driving over there in 2 hours. I am bringing nothing. I am just coming, the way he told me to, the night the road was empty. Drive carefully. When the screen lies, trust the road. The road is the truth. The road is what we have.